How's it going, everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On this Indie Explained, we're looking at the much ballyhooed Longlegs. We're in pursuit of a serial killer. An FBI agent uncovers a series of cult clues that she must solve to end his terrifying killing spree. Longlegs blasted onto everyone's radar with some of the best marketing seen in years, and went on to become handily the highest-grossing indie horror movie of the year. But the question is it any good? It's perhaps an issue of over-promising and under-delivering. The marketing teased something that the movie couldn't deliver. I hate when they use that quote, "the scariest movie in a decade," to hype it. I'm always like, what did you see a decade ago that was so scary? Drives me nuts. Anyway, don't get me wrong, Longlegs is not bad by any stretch. It does a lot really well. As usual, writer-director Oz Perkins soars in creating a lingering sense of dread that permeates every scene. And the dark, moody visuals are extremely well crafted, as in all of his movies. My issue lies with the story as a whole, where much of it is a fairly by-the-numbers serial killer crime drama that takes a sudden shift into something else entirely, and it feels a bit disconnected with everything up to that point. It also leaves many of the details regarding the killer and the more supernatural aspects without much detail, leaving us with many questions, especially in the end. So let's check out Longlegs, breaking down the many twists, including what we learn about the killer, and explaining the baffling ending that leaves us with a ton more questions. We're first treated to a red-hued screen, along with a guitar tuning and faint voices. There's some lyrics quoted from the all-time 1971 classic Bang a Gong Get It On by T-Rex. Only the beginning of this movie's strange obsession with glam rockers. The red slowly ebbs away to a car driving in a snowy forest. It rolls up to a stark white farmhouse, and a young girl spots the station wagon out the window. She grabs her jacket and mittens and goes to check it out. She peers at the car, seeing no one in the driver's seat. A voice shouts out, "Cuckoo!" and the girl follows it around to the back of the house. But there's nobody there either, and no matter where she looks. Until a dude appears with mouth agape and comically large white chin, yet his face remains just out of sight. He says in an oddly high voice, "There she is, the almost birthday girl, but it seems he wore his long legs today. What happens if I..." And he bends down, only briefly seeing his bizarre, overly chiseled face. More T-Rex already, good lord, man. So we don't understand the full situation here just yet, but this is our young protagonist Lee's first encounter with the mysterious serial killer Longlegs. She's definitely met him before. We then shift to Lee as an adult and freshly minted agent of the FBI. Might actually be her first official day, being tasked to go door to door in search of leads for a case. She's paired up with Agent Fisk, and their stop is in a normal enough looking neighborhood. Fisk offers to do the legwork while she stays back, and Lee seems distant, her mind elsewhere. After he leaves, Lee has a sudden unease, training around the track housing. She steps out into the street, and it still feels that something has caught her attention just out of sight. She settles on one house amongst the bunch that stands out, Harker looking in a daze. "It's that one," she states with authority. "He's in there." Fisk is curious why she's so certain, but Lee doesn't know. She still wants to call it in, and he laughs that he's not going to call in backup on a hunch on their very first day. He elects to go take a look himself, asking her to just relax. He knocks on the door, informing them it's the FBI. Lee floats up after, and the front door opens. He begins his spiel and is shockingly shot right in the face. Harker loses her breath, seeing him bleeding out. She enters the house, draped in plastic curtains all over the joint. Really panting now, she enters another room, finding her target. "Don't move," she stutters, and he holds up his hands in surrender, promising he won't. Too bad about Fisk, but hey, her hunch was right, as though she has some sort of inherent abilities that clued her into the location they needed. The Force picks up on this as well, and subjects her to several tests to find out if she really does have some kind of psychic ability. In a strange room, she's told to say the first word that comes to her mind, and several images flash by. Camera, table legs, tiger, she states, then door, mother, father, piano. All random words that actually end up being quite irrelevant to our grander story. They then ask her to determine a randomly generated number. She struggles and ventures a guess. 33? The voice asks again, "What's the number?" 0, she offers, and the room goes dark. She must have done reasonably well, at least, as she's thrown back into the field on a new case with agents Carter and Browning. The trio shares some dialogue about the local baseball team. Lee's not a fan of sports, before the subject turns to her test scores. She beat the number generator 8 times. How'd she do that exactly? She points out she also got it wrong 8 times, and according to Carter, half psychic is better than no psychic. He clues her in on the case, pointing to a house up ahead. A family of 4 lived there for years. All nice, normal people according to records. That is until 2 months ago, and all 4 were killed. It was the father who suddenly lost his mind and went absolutely nuts on his family, leaving them with an insane number of stab wounds. Things don't quite add up with the evidence, and they don't get it either. There was also a letter left behind with a coded alphabet or cipher, and from what they can tell, it is not from anyone connected to the family. They have 10 total letters from 10 different families over the span of the last 3 decades. All the letters are signed the same: Longlegs. They know someone or something is making the fathers do the murders, but Carter sighs they have no idea what. At the office, Carter is curious about the incident with Fisk. She describes the feeling as something tapping on her shoulder, telling her where to look. She says it happens only from time to time, and Carter thinks that, well, maybe we'll just call her highly intuitive. He joins her at a classic crime board, asking what does she see. So far, she's pinpointed that the family's daughters all have their birthday on the 14th of any given month. He leaves her to it, and Lee spreads out all the evidence onto the floor. She listens to a 911 call from one of the fathers who is acting strangely, saying something about it's best to do it when she's sleeping. The operator pleads with him to stay on the line, overhearing yelling and glass breaking. She lays out more photos, and soon morning comes. Carter finds her later straight up passed out and tells her, you can look at things too long, He invites her for a drink, which she turns down as she doesn't drink. That's fine with him. He can drink and she can talk. They go over the cases, and there were no signs of forced entry, and all the victims were killed by an object in the house, generally a kitchen knife. Longlegs should have left evidence of him being there, but according to what they have, he never is. If not for the letters left behind, they wouldn't even know he was responsible. Carter mulls this all over, so even if he's not in person, he somehow tells the families he wants them to do it, and they do it. He scoffs, it sounds kind of like Manson, and she points out that Manson had accomplices. Maybe Longlegs does as well. As he has had a few, she offers to drive him home, and he basically forces her to meet his family. He stumbles in, and his daughter Ruby gives him grief for not calling. She introduces Harker, and Ruby asks if she wants to see her room. Even if she doesn't, Lee knows she has no choice here. They sit in silence, and Lee takes in the area, including a bunch of trophies. Ruby asks if she wanted to be an agent when she was a girl. No, she wanted to be an actress. The girl asks too, is it scary being a lady FBI agent? It is, she admits. Her mom comes in as it is way past Betty buys, and Ruby invites her to her upcoming birthday party. Great! Now I gotta go to a kid's birthday party. Wonderful. Like I have nothing better to do. Lee sneaks up to her house, and there's a blare of loud music out of nowhere, which she dismisses. She calls her mom, who seems a bit spacey, and asks how she's doing. Lee sighs she is having trouble sleeping thanks to work stuff. Nasty stuff? Yeah, Lee chuckles. Mom asks if she wants to talk about it, and Lee shuts this down. She reminds her that she was a nurse for 8 years, she's seen plenty of gross stuff in her day, and a voice swirls by. She hangs up in a rush, and there's loud banging at the front door. She grabs her gun and weakly calls out, "Hello," checking the locks. She turns on the porch light and spots someone amongst the foggy trees. She runs outside, already breathless. She turns back just in time to see someone in white wandering through inside. She runs back after the intruder, still freaking losing it. They are gone, but left something behind, an envelope saying, "Do not open until January 14th. She of course immediately cracks it open, and it's a weird old birthday card for turning 9. There's also some words along with the cipher, allowing her to decode the message. On the back, it's signed Longlegs, meaning that he has already tracked her down. Lee gets to work cracking the code, and a swirling black devil appears over her shoulder. She then gets a call from her mom, which she ignores. She gets another thinking that it's her, but it's Carter calling her in. There's been another murder. In the morning, the cops swarm the killer's newest crime scene. Carter informs her that they were a bit late on this one. They had reservations for a trip, and no one checked in on them. The girl's birthday is on the 14th, and she is approximately 9 or 10, matching all the others. She now knows the code and quickly deciphers it. He's impressed, but there is still a dead family to check out too. The dad was found in the garage with a knife, and the others aren't looking so good. According to the coroner, they've been dead a month. They want to take a look, checking with Harker if she's okay with it, her giving a half-hearted nod. She calls her mom again, informing her that she's going to be busy with work and won't be able to come visit her for a while. Her mom asks about the case, but of course she can't say anything. Not nice things, her mom assumes, and Lee points out they don't have a division for nice things in the FBI. Will she see her for her birthday next week? Lee says that she will try at least. She has another particular question. Are you still saying your prayers? Yeah, Lee responds dismissively, and her mom gets serious. You know prayers protect us from the devil. Yeah, I know, she sighs. I'll call you later. Lee digs deeper into the previous murders and the scant info that they have on Longlegs. There's an article that makes mention of a satanic cult on the Oregon coast. Seems important. She puts together a more complicated cipher to decode all the messages. There's a faint whispering, and she pulls out a book, 9 Circles of Hell, and stops on a page featuring a triangle and 666 around the symbol. She folds the paper in half and draws a symbol matching each of the victims together, implying a grander pattern at play here. There's a thud at the window, and you you really gotta be looking, but there's a definite horned silhouette there that quickly vanishes away. Yep, Satan's got his eye on you, girl. She shows off what she's discovered to Carter, explaining to him the pattern. The first murder was in July of '66, and the rest of the murder occurred 6 days within the daughter's birthday. She illustrates the inverted triangle and how it matches with the dates, and also has decoded all the letters. They make repeated reference to a fun time at the Camera family farm where X marks the spot. Carter remembers the family, calling it a bloody massacre. Luckily, the daughter Carrie Ann survived as she was at school, and it was days before her birthday. He believes that Longlegs was at one point at the family farm, and the girl might have seen him. Sounds familiar? They can ask Carrie Ann herself as she's in a facility not too far away. A storm approaches as they arrive at the abandoned Camera family farm. On a barn, they spot some X's marked on the door and know they're on the right track. The shot lingers as they enter the barn, and I could have sworn I saw something out there, but after doing some enhancing, it's just like a water container or something. They search through the dusty barn, and another X leads them upstairs. There's another X on the ground, and they discover it's actually a crucifix. They crack the floor beams, unearthing something hidden inside. They find a piece of paper with an upside down triangle and smiley face. They lift the lid, and it's a weirdly realistic girl doll curled up inside. The sight of this seems to affect Harker physically, and when they pull it out, its eyes open. Bah! They take it to the coroner, who remarks that it's beautifully handmade by quite an artiste. He also found something weird in its head, a gray hollow ball which he has dubbed the brain. It may be empty, but when putting a device on it, it emits a high-pitched ringing that again seems to affect Harker. Red-hued imagery takes over, and we flash back to Longlegs working on his Carrie Ann doll. He asks her name, Little Angel, and tells her to not be afraid of a little bit of dark, because you are the dark. He covers her in a shroud, and the tones along with the vision fade away. Carter wants to know if they can open the brain up, and the coroner tells him there's no point. It's empty anyway. So with that, it's time to pay Carrie Ann a visit. An old car barrels down the road with T-Rex on the radio, naturally. It's our boy Longlegs, actually fully seeing him for the first time. He jingles into a local hardware store manned by a bored counter jockey. She glances up to the mirror suspiciously but averts her gaze. He returns with his purchases, and she asks if he needs anything else. Longlegs puts his hands over his face, repeatedly saying, "Cuckoo! Goo-goo, goo-goo." The girl is baffled, and he asks the little angel when her birthday is, letting out a wheezy chuckle. She shouts for her dad. The gross guy is back again. Longy drives off slack-jawed. He shouts, "Daddy!" and then, "Mommy! Unmake me and save me from the hell of living," he screeches. Woo, this guy's intense. When they arrive at the hospital, the administrator reveals that 2 days ago, Carrie Ann was catatonic. Then yesterday, she got a visitor, and since then, it was like somebody flipped a switch on the back of her head. Suddenly, there she was, wide awake and bright-eyed. He didn't see the visitor himself, but the logbook should say. Oddly, the name entered is Lee's, and it must have been Longlegs visiting his old friend. Lee meets with Carrie Ann, and she thinks that she has seen her before. Lee doesn't think she's met her at least, and she insists that she's been to her house, or someone that sure looks like you anyway, she slurs, and well, she was just there. Lee asks how she's feeling, and she says different. It's like a long dream, and so dark. A world of dark, like a nowhere between here and there, a limbo. Lee inquires, does she remember anything else, like coming here in the first place or her parents? Carrie ponders and does remember a bit from being a child. Someone is seated, shrouded in black, Satan, and Carrie recounts that her mom hated her because she came out wrong and bled her up too much. Mom stabs a doll that looks suspiciously like her daughter. Papa sits with the doll, and she calls him a good man. He of course snapped one day, decapitating a cow before turning his rage on the family. When it comes to her visitor yesterday, Carrie gushes that she doesn't want to forget him. She's waiting on him to come and get me. He said there is something that he needs her to do. Even better, something for the man downstairs, appearing under his control in some way. She says she would do whatever he tells her to. If he told her to jump out the window, she would surely do so and be happy as peaches. Then the big question, does she remember having a special doll that looked just like her? Carrie has no memory of that, and oddly tells Lee that she doesn't remember neither. You dirty, flirty old angel bitch. Well, that wasn't exactly helpful, and while Carrie Ann is no longer comatose, she is still definitely kind of weird. Lee collects herself in the bathroom, and there's another flash of Longlegs down in his basement studio, including a poster of Mark Boylin proudly on display. There's also his ornate doll factory on the other side of the room, seeing where he crafts his handiworks, plus another appearance of the devil looming in the corner. Carter and Lee discuss what they learned. 20 years later, Longlegs visits his survivor as an agent that is on his tail. He somehow left his victim feeling better than before. Lee points out she did come out of the comatose state when they found that doll, but it could just be a coincidence. coincidence. They're still missing something here that makes all of this work together. Lee offers that some cultures use magic with dolls, and Carter is not interested in that. Longlegs is just a man, not a witch doctor. By the way, how does he know her name anyway? She has no idea, and he's becoming a bit suspicious. A week ago, this case was ice cold, and as soon as she comes on, it's flowing like hot lava. He asks her sternly, "What are you telling me?" Lee ponders what to say, and he brings up that he revisited her file. He wants to know when the last time she talked to her mother was, and she doesn't see what that has to do with anything. Well, because she called in a report to the police on January 13th, 1974, one day before her birthday. She gave him the description of a tall and pale trespasser. Lee is bowled over by this info, and he tries to get her to focus. Do you remember seeing someone like that? Lee still has no clue, and Carter tasks her to talk to her mother and tell me what she knows about that dude. She unwillingly drives to her mother's house. When parking, she rubs her temples as though being back here is physically painful. She enters, still looking uncomfortable, and the house is lined with crap everywhere. She finds her hippie-ish mother nestled amongst more crap in her bedroom. They share a hug, and Mom asks again about her prayers. Lee spills the truth. "No, Mom, I never said them once. In fact, they scared me." Mom laughs heartily, and it's pretty funny, I guess. She wants to know too, what exactly is so funny? Ruth tells her, "You're right, prayers don't help us at all. They don't do a goddamn thing." She goes to fix some food, and Lee rummages through the mess. Amongst the stuff, she finds a stash of needles and prescription drugs, remarking, "Jesus Christ. Whatever it is she's on, it must be pretty serious." There's a strange sound, and she looks towards the basement door. A single roach crawls out, and then there's a flash of red snakes. Oh, and who's that watching from the door? Her old buddy. We see her then back as a kid, and her mom tells her that she got her shift covered. It's someone's birthday. Later, she's washing a garment with bloodstains in the sink. A dog barks outside, and a vehicle rumbles up. Ruth sees someone in the window. She tries the phone, only hearing distorted noise and static, so she grabs her shotgun, and we are launched back to the present. Lee tries the basement door, finding it locked. She begins to peruse an assortment of keys until her mom calls her away. Ruth is shocked. It's already her birthday again. She recalls when she was born, and she bled a lot, just like Carrie Ann's mom. Lee asks if she remembers her 9th birthday, and Ruth stares off in a trance. "No, I don't think so." Her eyes go wide, and Lee knows that she is hiding something. She presses her about calling the police, and Ruth fibs, "Nah, no one came to visit us." She says there are things a little girl shouldn't know. She reminds her that she's not a child anymore. "I'm like 30 now, Ma, jeez." And Mom tells her that's because she allowed her to grow up. Allowed? She mumbles that it is a cruel world, especially for little girls. She forgot what she had to give up for our sake. She never threw anything away. Lee navigates through the piles of crap in her childhood room. A trunk in the corner catches her eye, and she dons some gloves before opening it up. Inside are several photos wrapped in a ribbon, and she flips through them unfazed until something snaps her back. We're then back at the opening scene, and Longlegs leans down to snap a photo, but it was actually Lee that took a photo, and then we hear her mom. "Who are you, and why are you talking to my kid?" He starts waggling his fingers around, singing, "Let me in now, and I can be nice. Let me go, I have to come back, not once but twice, as many times as I like." Oscar, please. Now that Lee knows she has met the killer before, she takes the picture to Carter. They agree to bring in her mom for more questions, but for now they have that photo. He's taken aback. "Are you sure this is the guy? You really want to start a manhunt with this?" And yep, she is certain. That's their guy. Down in Longlegs' basement, there are several doll pieces around, but no sign of the killer. He must know things are closing in, and he's seen at a bus stop with 2 suitcases. Hearing sirens approaching, he knows he's cooked. The cops and SWAT roll up, ordering him down on the ground. He's taken into custody and sat down for an interview, rattling off that his real name is Dale Ferdinand Cobble. Okay. They ask if he's ever called himself Longlegs, and he's only willing to speak to one person, Lee Harker, Herald the Angels Sing. They want to know how he knows her, and he calls her a friend of a friend of a friend, and this friend wants me to stay. "Happy birthday, Lee Harker," he screeches with heavy emotion. He says to each person, "You'll be there, and you'll be there, you'll be there." He starts wailing happy birthday and screaming Lee's name. Browning pauses the tape, groaning that it goes on like this for a while, like 24 minutes long. Carter dismisses the others, and they break down where they currently stand. Longlegs' suitcases were stuffed with handwriting that matched all the letters from the scene, and they are all heavily satanic in nature. They're stuck in an odd position, however, as there is still no evidence that he actually killed anyone. He definitely worships Satan, but that's totally allowed in the good old US of A. The bigger concern at the moment is how he knows Lee. They do at least know that he must have help, someone the families were comfortable letting into their home, someone they somehow knew. They do have the guy guy, and if they are able to prove what he did, he'll be in jail for the rest of his life. But it's not over. According to the code, there's still one more victim on the 13th, as in today. They assume there's going to be one more family, and only Longlegs knows who that is. Lee asks where he is now, and he says downstairs, right under her feet. This flashes Lee back to her childhood once more. Long mentions something about a friend of a friend that lives downstairs. Downstairs from where, Ruth asks. Downstairs from everyone. They call him Mr. Downstairs. She decides to follow through with the killer's request, and he is delighted to see her. There she is, he gasps. The almost birthday girl. He chuckles. It's funny, the day that she decided to go into law enforcement, she was 20. He had such a big laugh about it. It was only me who laughed, not she. Who is this she he's talking about? He clarifies she's the 7th she. All are given the same choice, crimson or clover. Destroy the gift and destroy yourself. Or keep it and bow down. Bow all the way down and get right to the dirty work. Work that gets dirty as it cleans, like a mop, like a rag. He croons in a disco-esque falsetto. She broaches the subject of his accomplice, and he spills about how things work. A nice lady with a Bible shows up at the family's front door with big news. They've won a gift from the local church. It says right there on the order from right downstairs. He mentions the camera farmhouse. You can't miss it. She asks about Carrie Ann, and he changes the subject to her house. Hers was the whitest house he's ever seen. Whiter than tits, whatever that means. He knew then that the work that he's doing was immaculate. Lee lets him down. His work is over. It's done. You're gonna be in here for the rest of your life. He agrees he is done, but he won't only be in here. There will be a little bit of him everywhere, waiting in the wings, in the father's wings. She inquires about the man downstairs, and Longlegs suggests she asks her mommy. She insists that she doesn't know anything, and Longlegs leads forward in his chains, declaring, "Hail Satan!" He repeatedly bashes his face on the desk, spewing blood. He keeps going until his face is mutilated and the officers take over the scene. And that's it. That's all she wrote for Longlegs. Bye! It was in like 3 scenes in the whole movie. Afterwards, Lee tries to steady her breath, and Carter is at the end of his rope. They had the guy, and now they have nothing. They let all those families die. As for that aforementioned date of the 13th, Carrie leaped off the roof at the facility, no doubt due to Longlegs' influence. Somehow, he did the same with all the others with no accomplices, no black magic or voodoo or nothing. He's frustrated and stomps off, the case looking like it is going to implode. Browning gives Lee a ride to her mom's place, and the intent is for Lee to go in alone to bring her in for questioning. Lee bravely approaches the house and is able to steady her breath for a change. She pushes open the slightly ajar door to the theme from The Price is Right wafting through. She plods through the piles of junk everywhere, searching for her mom. Ruth is spotted outside along with a car covered in a tarp parked in a barn. She pulls up a shotgun and blows Agent Browning away. This puts Lee on edge, going for her piece. And who's a little looky-loo watching out the window? She peers out the window and Ruth fires another bloody shot. She runs outside and comes to a quite surprising, maybe sight. Ruth is there along with a doll that resembles Lee in the same outfit from their first meeting with Longboy. Lee is somehow confused by the doll, and Ruth tells her, "You caught him. Now he's finally free." Lee knows that Cobble is gone, and her mom assures her, "It's okay. It's done now. And you're free too, baby girl." She opens fire on the doll, blowing its porcelain head to bits. An obvious cloud of darkness subsides from Lee's noggin, along with that same ringing tone that we were hearing from the brain at the corners. Now that the brain ball from the doll that more or less controlled Lee has gone, we are thrown back to 75, and her mom finally fills us in on what really happened. One day, a man did come, seeing Lee checking out his car. He dropped off an early birthday gift from the church. "You've won!" He then started his terrible magic, the work of the devil. Those brain balls were put into each of his doll creations, and this is what allowed them to fog their minds and control the daughters and the rest of the family. As Ruth describes, the doll made the little girl forget and told her where to look and what not to see. The devil wanted a little girl of his own, and she would not let that happen, seeing Ruth and Longlegs fighting. "It could have been nice now, but it isn't. It's led to all this," Longlegs declares. What must be Lee's doll sits nearby, with a ghoulish figure seen poking out from the fabric. Ruth begged for Lee's life to be spared, but in return she had to help Longlegs. Ruth has been his accomplice this whole time. We then see what her role was in assisting him explicitly. She approaches the farmhouse, and guess what? You've won a prize from the church. Mom lets her in, Ruth lamenting all she had to do was let it inside. The devil did the rest. As the girl unwraps her doppelganger. Doppelganger. Oh. Not that funny. Things quickly turn violent with the dad destroying the wife. All Ruth had to do was make sure things went down the way they wanted. Lee wakes up and uses her hand like it's for the first time ever. She really has been cleared from the fog caused by the brain ball. She's down to that same basement of Longlegs we've seen sporadically. She then comes across his doll room and another fresh face waiting to be worked on. She stumbles upstairs, now understanding that Longlegs' workshop has been in her basement this entire time. Really makes that man in the basement thing make sense. He's literally in her basement. But also, of course, the even deeper basement of hell. She answers the phone, greeted by static, and a gravelly voice says, "You're late. You promised Ruby a birthday party." She takes the backup car, actually Longlegs, and sobs on the way. She lets out a guttural scream, which makes sense as her entire life has been turned upside down. Not only was Longlegs living in her house for years, but her mom is also his right-hand man. And she realizes that his actual final victim is intended to be little Ruby and her family. Let's hope she can save the day. She knocks rapidly at the door, and Carter seems strangely casual, answering with a smile. "Hey, you made it." Lee is worried. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, everything's great. We just started opening presents." Phew! Looks like everything's gonna be just fine. Or maybe not, as Carter's wife leads her inside. When slamming the door, there's another devil scene as it closes. And her mom is there too. Lee tries to explain. That's her mom. She's the accomplice. Carter is already falling into his killer fog, growling in a demonic voice to sit down. She keeps pleading with Carter to listen, seeing Ruby has her own dolly now, the final one before Longlegs went. Mom thinks it's a good time to bring out the cake, and Carter smiles eerily. The cake. Yeah, gotta find something to cut up the cakes with. He's about to chop his wife up. Ruth tells her daughter as much. The woman is already dead. The girl is next. He invites her in. "Hey, you wanna join me in the kitchen?" The mom smiles oddly. "We'll be back." And Carter shows his hand clearly. "I'll be back. You'll still be in the kitchen. All chopped up into little pieces. Sorry, love you." Ruth is adamant that all three have to die. If they don't, we will burn and twist and burn forever. Lots of twisting and burning. Well, that's no joke. Tortured for eternity in hell, it sounds like. Ruth argues that she's doing this for her, just like she's always done, saying again that she was a little girl allowed to grow up, and that to her makes it right. So she'll do it again and again, seeing her delivering packages to various unsuspecting families' homes. She gets more animated, proclaiming that she'll do it until she stands on the sands of the sea, and the sea beast rises. "Hail Satan," she croaks, and Lee breaks up the girl with her doll. Carter stumbles in, covered in blood. Lee warns for him to stop, and she has no choice but to put him down. Ruth then blocks to back away from the girl, and she goes for a knife. Lee has to make the hard choice to stop her mother as well, with a bullet right through the skull. She then turns her trigger finger to the doll. She keeps clicking, but the chambers are all empty. Or maybe it's somehow misfired. Something won't let her destroy the doll. With all those implications lingering, we hear Longlegs continuing to sing happy birthday and cackling. And he says, "It's time to go. Happy birthday, dearly Huckle." He concludes. Staring at the lens, he grumbles, "Hail Satan," and blows a kiss. The credits start rolling backwards, finally playing Bang a Gong, Get It On. Gotta end with some T-Rex, no doubt. Well, definitely leaving a couple of things up in the air there. Probably the biggest one is just how does the whole doll thing work exactly? Satan. Yeah, pretty much Satan. Seems to be the running theme here. Certainly throughout we see those flashes of the Lord of Darkness, really implying that he is kind of watching over Lee throughout the story, almost like that black mist in the ball is Satan himself infecting her mind. Which makes sense for basically turning the dads murderous as well. Their minds are polluted with the evil through the doll. Then there's how this ties to Lee specifically and how she acts throughout the story. You're always like, well, she's a bit low energy, huh? But now we know why. Since she was a child and during the entire investigation, she's been under the doll / Longlegs / Satan's control. It's basically preventing her from seeing the truth right under her nose. Then there's her psychic abilities to consider, and I can't help but think that all those visions and whatnot are only brought on by her hypnosis as well. She's doing and figuring out exactly what Satan and Longlegs wanted her to the whole time, without her even knowing what she was doing. She does ID the perp at the beginning, which is unrelated to Longlegs, but this ultimately is what leads her on her specific journey. Thusly, I have to assume that all those psychic powers were merely more manipulation by Satan. When it comes specifically to the ending, it honestly still seems like they would have no actual evidence to connect Longlegs to any of the killings or Carter's. It's pretty much the same template played throughout once more. At that point, he's even dead, so how could he have killed anyone? I can imagine that case is still wide open, but now things are honestly 1,000 times worse for Lee. She's lost Browning, Carter, her mom, and Longlegs. There's pretty much no one left that could even help her solve the case anymore. anymore. And that's especially personal and hard for Lee considering what she specifically went through. We know that she was intended to be a victim like all the others, but was saved by Ruth making her damn deal. This means the doll wasn't destroyed, the family accepted it as a gift, as Longlegs said, though that comes with its own price, obviously. You gotta help him with the murders. Even though Lee's doll was destroyed, we saw how Carrie Ann was still slightly off kilter even after her doll was taken out. There's still some lingering effects there. I can't help but wonder how that will affect Lee in the future, but then there's also Ruby. At least from what we know, her doll remains undamaged, meaning the brain ball is still working, just as Ruth and Longlegs said, he is now all around us. You can't ever really get rid of what he did. Interestingly, I also noticed amongst the cast credits one for adult Ruby, yet at least from what I saw, there is no such character ever on screen. It actually would have felt appropriate for the story to catch up with Ruby and Lee years later and see how they have been dealing with her continued control. Or maybe she broke the spell too, but it still has those lingering effects. Maybe even Ruby ends up picking up the mantle of Longlegs after he destroyed her family. I could see that being hinted at here in this potential deleted scene. Again, Longlegs, even if dead, will truly never be gone. With that, we reach the conclusion of this ending explained for Longlegs. What do you think the ending means? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And why not check this vid out over here and keep the creeps coming? Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.